You might be wondering why I'm lying on the ground in a bed of purple flowers. It's not because I'm some exciting plant explorer. It's because I want to introduce you to the saffron growing in my North Carolina backyard. I'm Tasha Greer. I'm the author of Grow Your Own Spices, and this is an episode of Spice Chronicles about the spice that really got me hooked on growing spices because of these beautiful fall flowering crocus that produce one of the tastiest, most expensive spices on the planet, saffron. I literally decided I was going to grow all the other spices that I could possibly get my hands on. Since this was so easy, I was absolutely sure that other spices had to be equally easy. And I will tell you, they're not all this easy, but with just a little bit of creativity and ingenuity, you can grow just about any spice that you can imagine at home. You didn't really come here to see me, though. You want to see these beautiful saffron flowers. And you can see the gorgeous purple color and those red filaments, those threads that are sort of hanging out. Those are stigmas, and that's what you harvest as the spice. Here is my saffron patch. You see these purple flowers just popping up in the middle of some short weeds. Now, I grow these as perennials, which means that I leave them in the ground year after year. And so what I do is in May, usually, the little green tips of these plants will start to die back. And when they die back, I'll cover the bed with some compost and I'll grow some lettuce or maybe some basil or even some other spices like fenugreek or cumin right in this area. And then around, September, late September, I'll just mow down whatever was growing here. And I just try to keep it mowed and clear until the saffron start emerging. As you can see, it will grow up fine under these low-growing weeds. And because I've got lots of compost in the ground, there's plenty of fertility. And so I don't have to worry about these weeds competing. Now, if there were big tall ones, I'd have to cut those down. But these short ones are no problem at all for saffron to survive through. And the reason I don't pull the weeds is because my soil is so nice. The weeds tend to get really deep roots. And if I start trying to pull up all of these weeds, I'll end up disturbing the corms, the bulbs underground that these saffron grow from. So saffron is really not that hard to grow, but there is a trick. I said I live in North Carolina. That means I have a very identifiable fall. The soil's temperature starts to decline, day length starts to decline, and that's how these little guys know that they're supposed to break ground. It's those two conditions of less light and cooler soil that say, saffron, it's your turn. So even while everything else in the garden is starting to fade and so many plants have kind of lost some of their original beauty, these guys are going, oh yeah, it's time to get started, let's party. And so they just start showing up. And this is just the beginning. They're starting to come out in full force now because we're finally getting some cooler nights. You can see these, they look like fireworks. And here you can see one that's just coming out of the ground. You can see the little sort of grassy looking leaves that it has, and then it almost looks like a torpedo shooting up out of the ground. And then it opens into those lovely flowers that I showed you. Here's another close-up of these little sort of torpedo flowers. Now it's specifically those red threads that you see on those flowers, those 3 red stigmas. That's the saffron spice. So to harvest, you can actually leave the flower in place and just pull out those 3 stigmas, and the flowers will actually survive for a couple of days. Eventually they'll kind of fade and, you know, fall to the ground, but you can just leave them growing. In fact, you can see here, that's one that I harvested yesterday. And so I just leave them for their beautiful color until they die naturally. Now, if you were a professional or commercial saffron grower, that would be way too much work. Instead, what they do is pick the entire flower, and then you can take that back to your workstation or table, and you can very carefully pick out those 3 stigmas. Last thing I want to tell you about saffron is that when it starts flowering, you do have to come out to your saffron patch just about every day and get those saffron threads, because these flowers, they just start cropping up and you just kind of keep an eye out for them. But those saffron threads, if you want them to be their tastiest ever, then you need to harvest them very fresh, same day they come out. You want to get them before rain if you can. And there is my haul for today. So this is probably about what I get in like those tiny little packets that I used to buy at the store for like $11 or $12. So it took me about 5 minutes to harvest these by hand. These are the ones that I harvested a couple days ago that I just dried in a little dish, and they are ready for me to put into a jar and leave them there for a month or longer so that they'll develop their distinctive flavor and aroma.